As we set it up, I'm aware acutely that I have just 15 minutes, and I have tried to put a timer on my presentation so that I can finish in time. First of all, it's my proud privilege to be here, uh, coming from India, although I'm very just across the sea, 40 minutes flight from Trivandrum in Kerala. It's my very proud privilege to be here in front of all of you. Uh, I've been coming to Sri Lanka, but this is a special occasion because I'm with the ISOC community. I'd like to thank Professor Diaz and the entire Asia Pacific community for giving me this opportunity to speak to you about net neutrality. So I come from the Center for International Center for Free and Open Source Software, ICFOSS, but I'm also involved with ISOC, ICANN, IEEE, and the Computer Society of India. And I'll be briefly touching upon some of these points in relation to net neutrality. Now, we've been talking about, since for us, the last couple of days, but since yesterday here, about how valuable the internet is an instrument for various purposes, for work and for life and for development and for economic activities, for livelihoods and so on. We have to be aware that the internet is made possible by a large number of actors, many entities, including our closest is the ISPs and mobile companies who deliver internet to our home. The content providers who provide websites and services like Google, Skype, WhatsApp. The standards community who are invisible but all pervasive, because without standards we can't go ahead. End users and their communities, ISOC is particularly visible there. And governance agencies like ICANN. Now, all these are actually actors in the internet itself. Now, net neutrality basically refers to or reflects some of the basic conflicts of interest that exist between some of these actors. It is not as if everybody's objectives are aligned. There are actually conflicts. And the net neutrality debate has come out of that conflict of interest. I'm putting forward some of the cartoons that appeared in India. This is now, unfortunately, this is biased against the telcos. It is not to say that they're not playing a valuable role, but many of these things are from the user perspective. And in the user perspective, telcos are made as the kind of, not the villain, but someone who's not being upfront. So here what's happening is this person is cutting off all the several innovation and consumer choice and new content and deciding on what the consumer should get. And he's saying that this is all for your betterment. This is a slide from Indonesia, where the Facebook has multiple options. One version is without photographs. If you want pictures, you have to pay for it separately. You have to buy a pack where then you can see pictures. So those are the different options that are available with the pictures. Another view is that now you want to go here, but your ISP wants to show you these. So you don't get to kind of go to your place easily. Okay, you can get there, but you can see the maze that you have to go through to reach there. Again, the feeling by the general public that the telcos are actually kind of looking at only their interest. They are kind of pushing out all the other good things with the internet, including innovation or cyber activism, content, startups, innovation, and so on. The same thing is coming up here. Now, these set of cartoons have come from the Indian context. There's been a very viral, acrimonious at times, debate happening in India on this issue of net neutrality. Now, what is this whole thing? What is net neutrality? Now, very simply, this is the principle that all the traffic should be treated in the same way. The people who are providing the backbones and the last miles should not differentiate, should not start taking actions based on what kind of traffic this is. Now, we believe that net neutrality is one among the several concepts behind the broader concept of an open internet. The others being open standards, transparency, absence of censorship, ease of access, and low barriers to entry. These are some desirables that many of us believe in, and net neutrality is a part of that. Now, in general, the networks are supposed to be agnostic of the content that is passing through. The intelligence resides at the endpoints. So it's like a dumb pipe with smart endpoints. So that is a model that has been generally accepted in the internet community. But the infrastructure, the pipe, is made up of telcos. The moment they start getting restive or uncomfortable and they want to look into what's happening, they want to prioritize traffic, then we are going against net neutrality. Now, why are the telcos doing this? What is their motivation? There are actually several interesting factors. Somebody, I think Rajneesh was touching upon over-the-top services like video and others. What is happening is there is this feeling that, not the feeling, it's actually reflected in numbers, that SMS has been declining because of WhatsApp. Many of us use WhatsApp, and we don't use SMS all that much. So there is actually an impact. The telcos are actually losing out money because you are using WhatsApp, and they're not getting any share of WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was actually acquired for $22 billion. The telcos have not got $1 out of it, or 1 rupee out of it. So there is a disparity that they see, that someone else is making money off us. The YouTubes and the various other, over-the-top providers, they are actually using the internet. They're using our, hardware and fiber optic cables, but we're not getting any share of that money. So this is a basic contradiction that the telcos face. So they would like to see that they also get a part, at least, of these revenues. So they want to share the money, for which they want to, what they call as, prioritize traffic, or zero rate, or provide zero rated services. Now, what are these things? Prioritization is very simple. They throttle something and they kind of give priority to something else, depending on what the traffic is and depending on what they get out of it. So they may have an agreement with the particular company. There's been several examples of those kind of agreements. So they prioritize, they kind of make it faster. And so there are potentially different kinds of discrimination that the telcos can apply. Now, the legal status of this is kind of gray because in most countries, there are no laws, India included. So what they can do, what they can't do is not well defined. So how do they discriminate? They can discriminate both positively and negatively. It's not as if it's only negative. By protocol, so for example, BitTorrent. Many of us who use BitTorrent, we found that certain countries, we are blocked. We can't do any torrent. So is that, do we have a right to, now the problem is that people, general users associate torrents with piracy, downloading videos or movies or whatever, but that's not the case. That's not always the case. There are many of us who are legitimately using it for distributing software. So how can you then discriminate? By users, user groups, geographies. Can you block some countries from accessing? YouTube does that, even today. It will say this content is blocked in your country. By platform, I'm using Linux, been using it for many, many years. Now, can somebody block me if I'm using Linux as opposed to using Windows? By access device, mobile phones versus desktops, by language, and many other ways perhaps. So these are some of the ways that the ISPs can step in and start dicing and slicing the kind of the market. And what could be the end results of these non-neutral regimes? Now, operators could legally parse the traffic. If they want to prioritize, if there's a law that says, okay, you can prioritize, how can they prioritize without knowing what traffic it is? They have to look into the traffic to figure out what kind of traffic it is. That means they have the power now, authority legally, to look into these packets. And therefore, getting into data is just one step from there. So can they examine our data? This is the kind of concern that comes up. Stifling of user choice and innovation, creation of gatekeepers who get to decide what we should be seeing and what we should not be seeing. A violation of the end-to-end principle, I talked about it, the dumb pipes and the smart endpoints. Creation of walled gardens, that is fragmentation. So one country says, this is my internet. Another country says, this is my internet. So there is no unified global free internet. There's only these different fragmented internets. And fundamentally, we believe that it also undermines the basic democratic character of the internet. So throttling, blocking, paid privatization, etc. In India, we have this internet.org, which we'll come to shortly, and they say it is free internet for the poor. And the activists, some of us believe that it is neither free, nor is it internet, nor is it for the poor. It is not internet because they are giving us a small, kind of snapshot of what they would like us to see. It is not really free because there is a revenue model behind it. They're not doing it for charity. So zero rating is that strategy by certain providers who will provide you without any access charges. So Facebook's idea was that we will give access to millions and millions of Indians who do not have access to internet otherwise because they don't have the money to pay for the monthly charges. Now that is actually a kind of a trap. And the last point is some companies like Facebook may want us to believe that internet is Facebook. Like on the case of desktops, sometime back, Microsoft wanted us to believe that computer is Microsoft. So the same thing applies here. It is not so. So there is so much of diversity today, and exactly the same applies to what the internet is. So who's impacted? Businesses, particularly startups, because they have very limited budget. They have only one connection. They don't have redundant options. End users, particularly those using voice over IP. In Sri Lanka, I just learned that was the country where there's the largest number of immigrants, people working abroad. Now, naturally, they will use all kinds of voice over IP to talk to their relatives back and forth. And if there's a bar, like in India, there was a ban. Airtel said you have to buy a special pack if you want to use Skype. Internet itself will not kind of let you do that. The government is going to be impacted if there is going to be a disparity like this. Students. Okay, we come to what's happening in India. In India, we had several things happening end of last year. Airtel, one of the large providers, said that you have to buy special packs if you want to use some kind of services. So with a basic thing, you cannot use all the services. The US Congress hearing in February kind of classified. So that is a very good impetus for the community in India, because they learned that, okay, in the US, the government has decided to make new laws for net neutrality, affirming net neutrality. Then internet.org, launched by Facebook and Reliance, which is one of the largest ISPs in India. And they had this model of the zero-rated model, where they had a bunch of things that you could kind of access free of cost. But you could not access other things. And there was this group of comedians who who were so enthused with the concept of net neutrality that they launched a video, which is on YouTube, which went viral. And that is actually a very great influence over the large number of people who responded. And what is the response like? Currently, there is no law in India. The telecom companies have been lobbying, which is fine, which is what they have to do. But it is important to note that other countries like Chile, Netherlands, Brazil, US have laws which we can learn from. In India, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, they're the ones who are kind of doing this, the policy. They put out a paper which is very obscure. The title is very obscure. You can't read anything into it. Consultation paper on regulatory services for over-the-top services. So in the first place, it was difficult to make out in the title. Second place, it was put in the website in such a way that it's not easily visible. But the community found out about this. And there was this very large kind of effort by the community meaning everybody, including those comedians who produced this video, which went viral on YouTube. The net result was over 1 million people wrote public comments on the TRAI proposal. And a vast majority of them said, we believe in net neutrality. And please do not make regulations that will kind of hinder, which will kind of impede the objective of net neutrality. And many prominent persons, including the MPs and the IT minister himself, publicly came out and expressed support. The telecom lobby is still continuing to silently lobby, but since this overwhelming kind of response from the public was not something that they had expected, they are a little bit low-key and they're trying to see what they could do now. And in internet.org, people started pulling out. Facebook decided that, okay, instead of showing you just a bunch of sites, they will problem there. Okay, so Facebook said that instead of showing us only 30 sites, we will create a process whereby other people who create websites can also apply and get through to this list. So they kind of relax their own kind of policies. So this is based on pressure from the public. And we are aware that the same model is being experimented in other parts of the world. Now, if the user community do not respond, then there is a problem. There's a risk that you're going to be locked out or locked in into the vendor. My last slide. So as we look back and look forward, what do we see? What is very clear is that the battle of net neutrality has not been won. This is only a kind of milestone, what has happened in India and several other countries besides. There is lots more to be done, and the debate will continue. The problem is that on the public, there is one process, but in private, there is another process of lobbying that goes on, and we are not privy to that, what happens there. So we have to continue the pressure, and we are very clear that we can't simply let go. And we believe that this is one of the portions of the larger war on the free internet. There will be similar things coming up in future. There have been so many incidents in the past also. But the good news is that the public at large is coming to know about these things, and they are taking positions on this, which is a good thing for us. The learning that we have is that unless civil society, not just a small group of activists or members of the ISOC, our role is to educate people, to create awareness about the issue. It's up to the civil society also to respond. And in India, we have seen that this is very much possible. It is not impossible at all. Thank you very much once again. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.